Welcome to the Shared Path. I'm Maggie Linton. Summer is here. For kids, it can be a time for learning and having some fun too. Joining us to discuss this perfect combination is Christina Sauer, an associate editor for National Geographic Kids Books. She's here to discuss the new National Geographic Kids Almanac for 2024. Welcome to the Shared Path.
Thank you so much, Maggie. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Christina, I hear that you are a real supporter and advocate for STEM. Talk about that. Let's start about that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that STEM, honestly, it's the foundation of everything. So to empower kids and to understand the world around them, they need to know how it works. And that's what STEM is. So I will say my love of STEM truly came when I was a child. I was definitely that adventurer explorer. I was always writing stories about the world around me. And it's a little bit of a sad story, but actually, when I was a kid, my sister was diagnosed with cancer. She's a cancer survivor, but it was due to an environmental contaminant in our area. And when that happened, I felt pretty powerless as a 9-year-old. I didn't understand what was in our water system. Why was it making people sick? Why should I be so scared? And what's going on? And I remember a lot of adults couldn't answer that question for me. So I said, you know what? When I get older, I'm going to make sure no kid feels powerless or helpless when it comes to something that's affecting them. And that's kind of what led me to Nat Geo Kids. One, we do it in a fun, engaging, great manner, but we also want to tackle those really hard issues or concerning issues, or even just like what's happening in the field and what are these breakthrough discoveries, so that a kid can go and explain it to them, to others, but also feel like they have a really strong knowledge base. It inspires them, and then they can go be leaders in the field in the future.
You brought up something that I was going to get to a little bit later, but since you brought it up, you felt helpless. But in this almanac, you tell kids about how to write a letter and make it effective. And that's what you so often hear. One person wrote a letter that finally hit home. And that's one of the other ways to empower your kids and teach them that they do make a difference.
Oh, this book is chock full of what I call interactive elements. It's ways to set you up. So you'll learn about subjects like branches of government, types of rocks, the calendars. But the truth is, what we also do is give you some fun tips, activities, and tricks, such as what is going on with this plastic problem? What is climate change? How do I make changes so that I can impact even just my corner of the world? We have a whole eco and wildlife warrior section where we actually give you examples of things that you could do as a kid that will make a huge difference in the world.
When you talk about kids, but there's a lot of stuff in here that really encourages the whole family to be involved, not just the kids.
Oh, absolutely. So for me, I will say this book, the content is really geared towards 8 to 12-year-olds when it comes to what are the things they're learning in school. And like, let's take a step beyond that. But I know every time I read this book, and I've read it before, I feel like I learned something new. And I feel like as an adult too, we get so far away from school that we don't learn as much on a daily basis. So some of those things that have always interested us, whether it's space and Earth and learning about, well, why did they have a Taco Tuesday in the International Space Station? And fun fact, it's because they actually have grown the first chili pepper in space. To, well, what about history? Who were the presidents? What were the president's fun facts? And my personal favorite is what we have a bunch of Nat Geo explorers at Nat Geo, right? What are they doing out in the field of paleontology? That section in Amazing Animals, we love to share with kids what are the newest discovered dinosaurs out there. We have illustrations. There's 4 of them this year, just as a little teaser. And they talk about what their names are, what the names mean, how big they were, and where you would have found them millions of years ago.
When you talk about the discovery of animals from a long time ago, there were some animals in here that I had never heard of
It's
at
true.
all, especially in the sea. It's like, whoa, where did that come from and how deep is that? Those are the interesting kind of facts that also come through.
Well, and all of our facts are really bite-sized. So we'll have a lot of fun, like infographics or designs or photos. Like, for example, I didn't honestly know what a quokka was. I was like, I've never seen it, and it is the cutest animal I've ever seen in my life. And it's actually known as the happiest animal. And we do a whole feature on it so that you get to not only learn what this animal is, but also get to enjoy how cute it is too.
Uh, how do you go about putting all this together? Because you're one of these editors, I know that works with kids' books, but I know you had to have had some input in this one because,
Oh,
oh my goodness, the pictures and all the facts.
it is a massive undertaking. I'm not going to lie. And I could not ever do this alone. It's also a very timely book. We want to make sure that you're getting the most updated and accurate information by 2024. So you're ready to know what's going to happen in the world in the next year. So we have fact checkers, we have experts like explorers, we have authors and project managers, photo editors pulling together over 500 photos to just dazzle you on each page, as well as our brilliant designers who make everything really engaging and fun and interactive.
Every page is just loaded with so much stuff. And again, you brought in new things this year too that hadn't been there in the past. And so talk about them because in a sense, I see kids with their phones all the time and they think that that's the interaction, but there's so much more.
Oh, it's so true. So each year we like to introduce a bonus section, and we think really hard in Nat Geo. What's a subject that we haven't covered? We've done these almanacs for over a decade now. So it's going, what would be really engaging to kids? So this year, probably one of my favorite bonus sections is a laugh out loud or LOL section. And we have riddles and jokes and tongue twisters. We have this thing called Critter Chat, which imagines like, what if the animals got their hands on social media? What would their text messages look like back and forth? So it's really engaging. It's something that you could pick up when you're on a bus or in a car on a road trip. You could read it near the pool and make all your friends and family laugh as you read them aloud and quiz them.
Well, the other thing is you really open the almanac with your world and you just give a broad overview of so many things that kids can latch onto right from the very beginning and then lead on into so many other things.
Yeah, that section is very special because many times in the US, when we publish a book, it's just for our market, right? It's just for Americans. This book is an international book. Kids all over the world get a chance to read it. So we want to make sure that that section isn't just about the US. That's not the only world. We want to make sure we cover subjects that are relatable to everyone all over or a new thing. So learning about your world that you didn't know before, like giraffes. Why are their necks so long? We talk about it. The fact that actually it's not just to reach those high leaves, which is really important. We think it might be an evolutionary trait that their earlier predecessors were smaller and didn't have long necks, but they had this strange habit of headbutting. And then ones with longer necks just happened to do better, perform better, and were more dominant. And therefore, now we have giraffes with long necks.
Well, that's just one of the many fun facts. But one of the other things, very next chapter, is the battle with plastic. And I know where I live, they've gotten rid of plastic bags. I mean, they're still
Mhm.
there in case somebody needs them, that kind of thing. But they really encourage you to bring in your own bags. And the battle of plastic is crazy. When you listed how much plastic is used and how many times it could go around the world, I was flabbergasted.
Well, and this section is important for many reasons. One, to protect our planet. Flat out. We talk about the Great Pacific Garbage Heap, essentially. It's just this patch in the middle of the ocean that is 2 times the size of Texas. And we explain to kids like plastic hasn't always been around. Where did plastic come from? What is it made of? When did it really wasn't used until World War II. And so we start to get into what the issues are and why we can't just burn plastic, right? We can't just get rid of it. That's going to impact all of us because it's made up of these polymers that when it burns can be very toxic. But that's a really, really hard subject. And it's sometimes very overwhelming for a child. So then you turn the page and it's, well, here are your solutions, right? As a kid, you're not going to change policy. You can write, but it's a little bit harder. So what can you do in your daily lives to reduce that plastic? Whether it's replacing that plastic water bottle with a reusable one. We show you what you can do. We also have recipes saying, you know what, don't go buy that trail mix from the store. you can make it yourself and put it in a reusable container. So it's a lot of fun activities that parents can also do with their kids. And it reaches a wide audience of individuals. And next thing you know, with one action, you've made a change.
I'm a huge fan of almanacs. I plan long-term trips. I planned my wedding by going, but it was the old Farmer's Almanac. Kids
Yes.
Almanac didn't exist when I was growing up, believe me. But it is something that can make such a big difference. And it also can make them so much more aware as we talked about our world, but also space
Yes.
because there's this huge section on space. You give fun facts from the past, but also looking toward the future.
Oh, yes, that is always a highlight of this book. We love to find new information. There's constantly space innovation happening, we feature a picture from the James Webb Space Telescope on the front of the chapter saying what's out there, but we also distill it down because the truth is, a lot of kids don't even know what the planets are or which planet is which, and then what the sizes are. So we do relative sizes, a basic introductory to planetary science, and then we go further. We say, okay, let's pose some questions, like a classic kid question. What happens if the sun goes away? What if we just didn't have the sun? And we say, all right, well, let's say today it just disappeared. What would we have to do? Well, you got 8 minutes before that last ray is going to hit Earth. Then you got to figure out, where do we go? Well, because the whole surface of the Earth, it's going to be below zero. It's going to be freezing temperatures. But we could actually survive. That's the crazy part. We could go underground because the core is really, really hot and you have the geothermal heat. So we talk about lots of really big, complex subjects in a way that's really accessible for kids, and questions that they're already asking their parents in the backseat of the car. Like, will the sun ever die? Well, no, we know that there's a core that is made of hydrogen and will eventually burn out in a billion years, but you don't have to worry about that today.
Exactly. The sun, moon, everything else. Another thing, I think that this almanac can also, like you were stimulated years ago when your sister had cancer, but to explore science and technology and perhaps stimulate a career that could be down the way.
Yes, so we have an exploration section just for that reason. So Nat Geo has many, many Nat Geo explorers, and they do so much incredible research on a wide variety of subjects. But I don't know about you, but I always thought, oh, it'd be so great to be an explorer. I couldn't actually be an explorer, right? That seems
No,
impossible. I could.
the bugs alone would probably drive me away. And I know there are many other ways to explore, but usually it's somewhere out in the wilderness somewhere.
Well, and it's funny that you bring it up because actually, Leonardo Motino Lana is the explorer that we interview to be like, how did you get into this? He studies praying mantises in Brazil. And he said, I was never interested in studying insects and the praying mantis, but he found that no one was doing research on it. So he said, why not? And he talks about his time as a kid and his love of science, and that's how he became an explorer. We also have photography. So if kids are like, science is a little scary. It's a subject that I really enjoy learning, but when I'm in the classroom, it's hard to take tests and understand the complexities. I'm kind of an artsy kid. Well, we say that's great because there are photographers out there. There's paleo illustrators who make the dinosaur illustrations. So we go into all the different areas, unbeknownst to them, that they could be a career path in the future.
Yes. Yeah. Your illustrations are also just fabulous. Like you talk about the photography, and when you said 500, I said, there's got to be more than that. There's got to be. I mean, every single page has at least five, or, it seems like there are so many, but let's talk about those special illustrators that bring some of those paleontology things back to life.
Yes, we work with an incredible illustrator, and his name is Franco Tempesta. And he just brings to us, he is an expert in all things related to new species of dinosaurs and prehistoric sea mammals. It's fabulous to tell him, hey, we're really interested in finding out what this guy looked like. We'll send him a name, and next thing you know, we have a whole landscape of animals that everything from the flora and fauna is exactly from that period in time to the animals, megalodon going after some pterosaur. It's pretty amazing.
The research that goes, we mentioned it briefly ahead of time, but like you said, the checking of facts and making sure that everything is correct. And then you have an illustrator who goes back and digs even further. It's kind of like, this is your assignment, let's get it done.
Oh, yeah. This is nonfiction is a really fun place to work because it's not just, oh, whatever's in my brain. It's what did something look like from the past and let's bring it to today. So there's so many different layers. And we do check with reading level experts and fact checkers and illustrators to make sure that everything you see on these pages is right, that that photo is of a great white shark and not a tiger shark. So we make sure that everything you're looking at, you can trust when you get that book is going to be accurate and that you can show others and tell them a fact.
Um, you also go into geography, which again, one of those subjects that can take you everywhere, but at the same time lead you back to so much history.
Yes. So on our team, I will say his name is Mike McNay, and he is one of my favorite people. He's a cartographer, which just seems like the coolest job, right? You're making maps for National Geographic. And he makes all of our maps. He updates them, gives us information. I mean, I will get emails on a regular basis of, hey, this country changed its name. Hey, this city is a new name. I had no idea. Turkey now has a different spelling. So we make sure that each year when you get that geography rocks section, that you learn not only about the cartography aspect, how we shape the maps, what they look like, how they were basically formed, what are, the different layers, but also fun facts about the world. So we pick several different countries each year and feature a fun fact that maybe you didn't know about your own country. And then we also do states too. So for us Americans, sometimes you're like, I don't know anything about Arkansas. And then next thing you know, we have a really fun fact that makes you want to go visit.
Yeah, exactly. So many places mentioned in here I want to go to and visit. And this becomes also a travel log and very much awakening the senses of let's go there and explore.
That is so key to Nat Geo. We love to spark curiosity, adventure, exploration, wanting to go to places, but we also understand that we have these books as resources because not every person is going to make it to each of those places. So we want to make sure that that book, when you look at the pyramids of Egypt, right? Yes, we would love for you to go there, but you have the ability to see it, to learn about it from the comfort of your home too, if you can.
You just mentioned a structure, and I thought think about the Taj Mahal, and with each so many of the different um, places that you mentioned, you give the full background history of them. But how many people knew why the Taj Mahal was even built and what a magnificent building it is? Well, actually, it's an estate. It's not just a building.
I had no idea either. It's such an iconic landmark in the world,
Mhm.
only to find out that it's really a tomb. It was a dedication of an emperor of the time to his wife when she passed away. And he wanted to erect this incredibly beautiful structure in memory of her. Who would have known?
Plus, how many of them still exist? The reasons why they were built, and now the reasons why people go to visit is also important. And that's also some information that you always give.
Oh, absolutely. And we also give you an insight into the places that you love to visit, right? So you think of like ancient Greece, right? And you think of the pillars and the temples and the structures, and they're always white in our head. When we illustrate them or animate them in our favorite movies, again, white pillars. And we say, actually, that's not true at all. They did have paint on them. They were brightly colored. It's just that over that many years, their paint, which was made of a lot of minerals at the time, wouldn't have survived to now between the climate conditions and weather and just the longevity of paint lasting on a surface. You can't see it today, but you will see what was underneath it.
Yeah. You mentioned Greece, and I've had the opportunity to actually visit there, and
Oh,
just being able to see those buildings, the Pantheon, so many different areas. It's just amazing how well they have withstood the weather and the test of time. It's really pretty amazing.
Oh, I wish that's on my bucket list. So in the meantime, I've got my almanac that I can live vicariously through others who have visited. But yes, they're just phenomenal structures and how individuals back in the time made them. We even
Yeah,
talk about that in some of our almanacs.
that's true.
They're man-made marvels.
This book is also in your kids' almanac 2024 is also done in many different languages now too.
Yes. So we actually the edition that you'll get here in the US if you were to order on go in the bookstore or order online
Yeah.
is the US edition. We also have a Canadian edition and an international edition, and then we translate it too. And each of those is slightly different, which is fun. You get some different facts if you live in the UK versus if you live in the US and in Canada. We want to make it really relevant to different parts of the world.
I think that's again, that's being inclusive, not exclusive.
Exactly.
As we look around, you talk about the wonders of nature. And those were some facts that I was like blown away with. Talk just a little bit about that section.
Oh, absolutely. So we start off a little bit with like biomes because that's an important aspect that most kids don't know about. Like
Yeah.
you think about, what's a forest versus a freshwater climate, what's a marine versus, saltwater versus freshwater. So we talk a little bit about that. And that's a section that pretty much stays the same every single year. And then we throw in some wacky weather facts, like the fact that there's been raining of frogs before and how that works. I'd be a little scared, right? Nothing to be scared of. And then with this section, we actually talk about one of my favorite, but also not so thrilled about them parts where we have cicadas. Do you remember when we had Brood X back in 2021? We talk about what that is and how cicadas and why did they just show up and when will they show up again? Because I know based on that, if you were in the Eastern United States, you felt like you were living in a bug's world. They were everywhere.
I'm telling you, I went to one friend's house and his whole driveway was covered with cicadas. And we had a few where I live, and we lived like maybe 10 miles apart. But I was amazed at what an infestation, and a lot of it has to do with the number of trees that are in and around your property, because they come no matter what, don't they?
Oh, they do. And it's funny because each brood, is what we call them, has a different timeline. And we talked about that one. Brood X was a 17-year timeline. And what baffled me, and I thought this was fascinating, was those eggs were laid 17 years prior and they developed for 17 years. And then when they hatch and come out, they only live for a month. So when you see them, they're only around for a very short period of time. They lay their 500 eggs in a tree and then pass on.
Well, and they make a lot of noise while they're here.
Yes, it's deafening sometimes.
As soon as the sun comes up, you mentioned the sun. As soon as the sun comes up, boom, they're out and they're
Yeah.
making noise and they're letting you know that they're here. Your fun house area is, the funnies, the things like that. Who goes around and thinks about what they're going to do? Also, the critter chat, how they talk to each other, things along those lines. I just, there are, there are sections that are pure joy and a lot of fun at the same time.
Well, thank you, because we put a lot of effort in those. And some of that credit I have to give to our Nat Geo Kids magazine collaborates a lot with us. So you'll see a lot of the features in here from everything from fabulous facts to the jokes and questions came from some of our Nat Geo Kids magazine editors because they are brilliant and they are constantly turning over what's going to be the next fun story or dad joke that kids will love. And then the critter chat, we have another editor on team where it's actually a book. So it's a little bit of a teaser that you get in this one of what would happen if the animals did have social media, or what if they had to talk to each other via Zoom. It's simulating what their lives would be like. But the truth is, we just put that lens on when it's really talking about what they do every day. What are their social behaviors? What we only have them interact with animals that they would have interacted with in the wild. And how does that work?
Guess you're already starting on the next one then, huh?
Oh, yeah. We've been in production since December.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
that's a
that's
challenge.
That's really, yes, of course. But I look at this book and how thorough it is. And it is something that not just for kids, but it's a way for a lot of people to get their kids off their phones. And if even if they took, you know, the first, say, 5 pages a day, they're going to stay active. They're going to learn a lot. And it's a way of learning and being a lot of fun at the same time.
Yeah, and I tell parents and educators and librarians, we have a generation of kids whose attention spans are a little bit shorter, right? They're used to TikTok and scrolling and going and having media pretty quickly. And this book is great for that child to get them into like reading longer books because each page or couple of pages is on one subject. And then they flip the page, and honestly, you could get a spread where one page is about these quokkas and then the next one's about animal myths. It's changing up the subjects and they can flip through. You don't have to read from cover to cover. It's very accessible for the average child who's pretty used to getting their content really quickly.
Exactly. Well, if there's anything you'd like to leave with the parents out there and also the kids, I'd say, come on, let's have some fun.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to give one plug because this is my favorite section for kids is it's the Almanac Challenge. This is their opportunity to actually get published in the future. So we do a challenge each year. This year, we ask kids to make an elephant social media profile and submit it to us. And the winner gets to be published in next year, 2025's Almanac, as well as the magazine. So you can become a published author and illustrator before you know it.
Well, that's part of the challenge of having fun with this. Listen, thank you so much, Christina. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and having a chat with you. And I really encourage everyone, whether you have young kids, like you said, it's geared toward kids 8 to 12, but this is fun for the whole family and could be fun for everyone to come out and have fun together.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for having me. Your joy is just infectious. So I love the show.
Well, thank you. Well, many thanks to Associate Editor for National Geographic Kids Books, Christina Sauer. Your kids will delight in the fun of the National Geographic Kids Almanac for 2024. It's available at their website, kidsnationalgeographic.com. That's kids.nationalgeographic.com and other locations. Until next time, seek peace and spread lots of love. Have some fun too. I'm Maggie Linton.